Trojan fans, welcome to another edition of the Peristyle Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Abraham, joined alongside Mr. Triple Double himself, Connor Morrissette.
Hello.
If you're listening across the podcasting platforms, that's great. You can't tell a difference. But if you're not, if you're watching us YouTube or Facebook, there's a new face here. I'm sitting right next to Connor instead of in my normal chair. We have a new intern helping us produce the show. India Otto is here. Follow on Twitter at India Otto. You might know her from the USC women's basketball team, but India, thanks so much for coming in and helping us out.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait. I'm excited.
Yeah, she had extensive training for about 45 minutes, so if anything messes up, we're going to blame her. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's great. So thanks, India, for joining us here in studio and everyone else listening. You'll be able to hear her kind of run us through the show and kind of make sure Connor and I are steered in the right direction, which isn't always easy to do. If you have questions or comments for the show, podcast at uscfootball.com is the email address. You can also call or text us at 424-254-9141. And we love to get your comments on our Apple podcasting app. You can do it on Spotify now too, I believe. But check it out, the Peristyle Podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Any kind of comments, questions, concerns there. It's great. It helps to grow the show. You know what helps grow in the show? When we talk about food. You like food, India?
I love food.
I love food too. Trader Joe's has been great to us over the years. I want to thank them for the years of sponsorship. I just was in Trader Joe's yesterday, Connor. I don't know if you've been lately, but go check out the Diamond Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It's 2023. Great stuff. Our contact over at Trader Joe's, I sent a picture of this wine. He goes, that's a really good one. I can't believe it's still there. So it's about $20. If you were getting it in a steakhouse or something, it'd be a lot more than that. But go check it out. I want to check that one out too. I also was looking on the website and something caught my eye, the spicy mango habanero guacamole. So I like getting the guacamole there. I bought some of the chips yesterday and I had some guac and some of the salsa from Trader Joe's, but I want to try this spicy guac. So I don't know if you've had that one.
No, I haven't, but that looks really good. I'm looking on the computer that you have pulled up here. Yeah, that looks tremendous. And the wine, can't go wrong with little Trader Joe's wine at $20. That's a great deal. You're absolutely right. You pay a lot more at a steakhouse. And I just always find whenever I go in there, any bottle of wine that I get, I usually am happy. So I shout out to Trader Joe's for not just the great food selection, but the great wine selection too.
Yeah. Did you got a favorite?
I do have a favorite. My favorite's definitely the Gone bananas, frozen chocolate-covered bananas. If you're a fan of bananas, go check it out. They also have a strawberry version. It's to die for.
Nice.
Incredible stuff.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, we got to get to the show. You want to give us a little recap of what we're going to be talking about today, India?
Yeah, guys, we have an exciting show for you guys today. We'll be previewing 2 early opponent previews. We got 2 special teams to talk about. We're going to dive into some USC recruiting. I know you guys love to hear about the USC football team. And then we also are going to talk about LA's best event, which was just hosted yesterday by a USC veteran linebacker. So we got an exciting show for you guys today. And let's just jump right into our 2 early opponent previews of the day. We've got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Iowa Hawkeyes. So let's get started with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, guys.
All right.
Let's see what you got.
I love it. I want to give a little shout out to India because I gave her a little verbal cues. And I was saying, I literally said, hosted by this event hosted by a veteran USC linebacker. And she said that, remembered it, said it exactly. So props to you. We'll give you a little, nice job.
Thank you, guys.
But Notre Dame.
Yes, I can get into Notre Dame. I also want to tip my hat, though, to India. Great job. It's not easy to be thrown into the fire by Ryan. So
I just throw you in the fire.
You're nailing it. You're nailing it. So we can get into Notre Dame. So if you didn't listen last week, we're going through some of the team previews that Bud Elliott has had on the Cover 3 podcast, the Summer School Series. So I forget the 2 teams we did last week. We're trying to go in order. Illinois was one of them, I think, right?
And Michigan State,
and Michigan State was the other one. And now here we'll move to Notre Dame. It's not in the perfect order because all the episodes haven't come out yet. But by the end of the summer, we'll hopefully have a preview for every team. So so starting today with Notre Dame, we all remember the game last year. USC was right in the game right until the end when, unfortunately, Jaden Maiava had the 2 pick sixes, but that was an exciting game. USC, like I said, was in it until the end. And then, of course, Notre Dame goes on to play for the national championship where they lost to Ohio State. So, Ryan, I don't know about you, but I think Notre Dame is the one game on the schedule where I would be shocked if USC came out on top in that one. I think USC has a chance to go beat Oregon. I think USC has a chance to beat Illinois. Some of those other games that are challenging, I think USC has a really good chance to win them. Never say never, but just off the top with what Notre Dame brings back defensively, and we'll get into it here in a second, that's a team that playing them on the road off of what they did last season with the guys that they bring back on defense, headlined by linebacker Kingston Viliamu-Asa, who USC fans will know. It's a challenging game, and it's a game that I hope continues as the years go on, but it may end up being the last game in the rivalry, and it's going to be a tough one for USC.
For sure. I mean, this is big boy football. When you're looking at USC opponents, a couple stand out to you. We haven't talked about the Oregon game yet, but on the road at Oregon, on the road at South Bend. USC hasn't won in South Bend since 2011. The Fighting Irish won the last two in this rivalry. And like Connor mentioned, this is the last one we have scheduled at all. So hopefully they're able to figure something out, and USC and Notre Dame will play maybe early in the season. We'll see what happens with that. But yes, this is going to be big boy football. Bringing back a couple of stud running backs. The offensive line is going to be great for Notre Dame. This was a personnel group that brought Notre Dame all the way to the national championship game, and even gave Ohio State a scare, at least more of a scare than anyone else did, really, in the playoffs. So this is not. If you like old school football, there's going to be a lot of that in this one. Of course, figure out the quarterback situation, but this is one of those games where you have to be on top of your game. You have to have every I dotted, every T crossed. If you just go in there willy nilly, there's a team that's kind of strangulate you, just run the football, pound it down your throat. And so I think this is a good gut check. I didn't call this one the barometer. I think you can lose this game and still have a really successful season. But if this is somehow a USC team that can become elite, you have to go into a place like Notre Dame and really compete at a high level, because this is not going to be, this is going to be more about blocking and tackling and all the old school stuff that, a lot of the USC fans love. You have to go in there with a tough attitude, big guys on big guys, and that's how you're going to beat Notre Dame. So I think you can lose this game and still have a really successful season. But if you can somehow go in, you want to be competitive, but if you go and win this one, it would bode well for the season. It's going to be a really good season.
Before we continue, I think our mics might not be on. Remember a couple weeks ago when we were picking up the computer audio, so I don't know.
Let me take a look. Yeah.
Take a quick look, but yeah. I can continue talking here for a second. But sure. I got it. It sounds like we're in a tunnel. Our friend Jeff texted me. So Notre Dame, new quarterback, CJ Carr is probably going to be the guy to take over for Riley Leonard. And while a new quarterback is always scary, Notre Dame has so much talent around that quarterback that I think that they will be able to test USC. Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, the two-star running backs, are back. They bring back all five starters on their offensive line. So that is obviously something that we need to talk about as well, because they should be pretty experienced. And then the receiving core, they don't have any returning game breakers, but that's just not how they're going to run their offense. It's going to be a ground and pound kind of style, and playing in South Bend in October at night, that should lend itself to having some success. But USC, we all know they've beefed up defensively, and that defensive line should be better than what it was. But I just think Notre Dame is further along in their rebuild, and it's going to be a tough matchup.
For sure. And I tried to look at some, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, there's some people saying there are some audio issues. Let us know anything specific in the chat, but it looks like the audio is working, the mics are on. So apologize for that. This is not an India issue. This is just sorry, guys. The only thing we're doing different is just we're using like a third mic. So I don't know if it's a specific mic, if it's Connor's or mine. I can play with that a little bit too. But this is big boy football. USC, Notre Dame. I don't know how much you're going to gain. Like, if USC is going to be a really good team, they can go in the South Bend and be competitive. You would love to get a win. It's been 14 years since you've been able to go into South Bend and win football game. It's obviously a great trip. A lot of Trojans go. We're going to do our normal. We did last year. 2 years ago, the Theory Bar in downtown Chicago. I think we're going to be back there. That was a lot of fun doing that. But it's a great trip. A lot of USC fans go. They would love to see a win. But there's a lot of teams that made runs at the playoffs last year, and you felt like they could potentially take a step back. I don't think Notre Dame's one of them. I mean, are they going to make the national championship game? Maybe not, but I think they could be as good as they were last year, which a lot of the teams you're not sure. I mean, there's questions about Oregon. Penn State people think are going to be better. How big a step does Ohio State take back? But Notre Dame's one of those teams that looks like they're still going to be really good.
Bringing back both the running backs is the big key. The fact that Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price come back in the era of the transfer portal and guys having all these different options, bringing them back is huge. And I have a lot of belief in their coach too. So we don't have to go too deep into Notre Dame here. I know a lot of USC fans are probably like, hey, let's talk about USC here and how they match up. I do think USC will do better stopping the run, but I just think Notre Dame's personnel will just be better than USC's in this game. But that's really the only game where here on June 25th, I feel like I can definitively say that. Like, I do think Oregon has a lot of question marks. I do think Illinois, although they returned some guys, they don't really scare you at the same level, of course, as a Notre Dame does. So that's the one game that I have circled on the calendar, Ryan, or on the schedule, where if USC goes into Notre Dame and wins, that would be very, very surprising. Just because I think X's and O's aside, we can talk about the matchup till we're blue in the face. I just think Notre Dame is better players, specifically on the defensive end. Yeah.
We're talking about how this defensive line for USC is going to be a lot better. There's going to be some really good tests. Even the team we're going to talk about next, just because they're really good physical at the line of attack. But Notre Dame is the time, like they lost like one of the starters from last year, like transferred somewhere else because they weren't going to be able to start this year. Like I think their offensive line could actually be better this season. So you want a test like that, a test on the road. USC's defensive line, I thought held up pretty well last year. And even though that was an undermanned line, there should be a lot better of a defensive line. So that might be where you see the sort of the biggest matchup is between what USC's upgraded on the defensive line and then what Notre Dame's able to bring back and improve on their offensive line.
And we can wrap up with three keys that would lead to a USC win. Obviously, stopping the run. If you want to beat Notre Dame, you got to stop the run. Limiting the mistakes. Notre Dame on the road. Jaden Maeva has a couple interceptions. That's probably not going to get the job done once again. And then I think bothering the new quarterback for Notre Dame, whether it's CJ Carr, whether it's Kenny Minchie, they're not going to throw the ball a ton, but when they do, if you can make them pay, that would be a recipe for success. So, of course, a lot would need to go right for that to happen. Notre Dame's going to be a top 5 team coming into the season. USC will probably not be ranked, but as we all know, it matters what your ranking is at the end of the year, not at the beginning. So, certainly the game I think I'm the most excited for just because I like going to Notre Dame. I love walking around the campus. That game, the history behind it, the significance. It's so much fun to just be there and cover that game. We did that 2 years ago. So hoping for a better showing than 2 years ago, of course, where they kind of got run out of the stadium a little bit. But this team for USC should be better than that one from 2 years ago, even though there's no Caleb Williams and they've made a lot of changes in the offseason. So I do think it can be competitive, but it would be a big surprise to me if USC wins.
Wasn't that the first time someone called you triple double? Your mom was there or something.
Yeah,
and you're like very excited.
My family came to that game and someone called me triple double in front of my mom and she lost her mind. So that was funny.
Sweet.
All right, guys, great stuff on Notre Dame. What do you think about the Iowa Hawkeyes?
Yeah,
let me flip the page in my notes.
Love it. Obviously, if you've watched Iowa football in the last decade or so. Offense bad, defense good, special teams good. This is another one of those teams where if you make mistakes, they're going to capitalize on them. And last year they ran the ball really well, but I think they had one of the worst passing offenses in the country. I think Tim Lester comes back as the offensive coordinator, but there seemed to have been, after Kirk Ferentz had to fire his son,
Brian.
Brian. Like they put in his contract, they had to score 25 points or more. And it didn't even have to just be offense because their special teams and defense scores a bunch. But it was bad. He needed to not be there anymore, and it was sort of like this reluctance to, try to score the ball. But it seems like this year they're pushing to actually try and score. You can't just win the weaker division or the Big Ten anymore. You know, there are a lot of things that are changing. If you read what's going on around Iowa, the thought is, hey, they're going to actually throw the football and be a regular college offense. You know, proof's in the pudding. You got to wait and see that. But you know they're going to be good defensively, really button down on special teams. They can score points on special teams, score points on defense, run the ball well. If they fix the passing game, I mean, this can be a really good team. I don't know if you can, but we've seen USC play a one-dimensional team last year in Michigan and still weren't able to get a win. This one's going to be at home, so that helps. And you wanted USC to be better, but we've seen this formula where you knew a team couldn't throw the ball, and it was Michigan with Alex Orji, I think was the quarterback at the time. And that didn't go well for USC, but I'm not sure this is going to be as one-dimensional as what we saw last year, but if it is, you want to be able to take advantage of that. But certainly this was a one-dimensional team last year, and we'll see if USC can handle it.
They won't be as one-dimensional because they bring in Max Gronowski, the transfer quarterback from South Dakota State, who won the FCS Heisman. He's a dual-threat quarterback, can throw it all around the yard. The question is, can he take that step up and save Iowa's offense? It's a little bit similar to Oklahoma, where Oklahoma fans, they're thinking John Mateer, he's going to be our savior. Iowa fans are thinking this Max Gronowski guy, he's going to come in and save us, but we'll see if him playing at a higher level will lend itself to success. So that's the first thing. USC will have to deal with a running quarterback in this game. But you mentioned Tim Lester. He was the offensive coordinator last year, and Iowa had the 129th rated passing offense in the country. They were putrid. Gronowski should help things. The offensive line should be pretty solid again. The receiver is a little bit of a question mark. I'm just not a Tim Lester believer. He was the offensive coordinator when I was in college at Syracuse, and those teams went 3-9 and 4-8. He's not a very good coach.
Is that good?
No. It's the anti-Danton Lynn hire, the opposite of Danton Lynn. When Danton Lynn gets hired, it's like, okay, this guy turned UCLA's defense around. I can see why he's so coveted. This is a great hire. When Iowa brought in Tim Lester, everyone was like, what the heck? This guy's not a good coach. And then last year, in his first year, they had the 129th ranked passing offense. So they're completely changing their offense this offseason due to personnel, but also because they need to get with the program and throw the ball. So is Lester really going to be the guy who's going to get that offense to where it needs to be? I have some serious doubts. Gronowski missed a lot of the spring because he had an injury. They don't have any proven receivers. Iowa hasn't had a receiver go over 420 yards on in receiving yards since 2019. So
I love that. So I was going to mention that stat. That's a great stat. Like, not a single receiver that has gone. You know, we've seen some of the Big Ten teams where like your leading receiver is like the tight end and he has like 800 yards or something, but not anyone no one's caught more than 420 yards worth of passes in a season since 2019. That's crazy.
Yeah, so I don't think Tim Lester's the guy to turn it around. So the Iowa offense could be better coming into the Coliseum, but to what degree is it better? And then they had a good rushing attack last year, but they lost Caleb Johnson to the NFL. They like the new running backs who are going to take his spot, but like I don't know. I don't buy into like I don't think Iowa has enough going on where they can just transform themselves and be a serious threat in the Big Ten. And then defensively, their defensive line will be pretty good, so that'll be a test for the USC O-line. But they lose a lot of guys in the linebacking core, a lot of guys in the secondary. I don't think they have the pieces in place to be a real surprise team in the Big Ten. USC was pretty good at home last season against teams not as good as them or equally competitive, and I think they'll be better than Iowa, and they should win this game.
Yeah, I mean, USC's played better at home for sure. We've seen in the Big Ten, and I think that would bode well. But it's another one of those games where I think USC's personnel a lot more talented, right, than what we saw last year. Just the way they've been able to upgrade things. But sometimes if you don't play buttoned up and guys are a little willy-nilly, the teams like Iowa that are well coached, they're just sort of like plodding along. It's almost like a tortoise and a hare thing that you make the mistakes and then they take advantage of the mistakes. So I think that's one of those situations where you have to play. I like both of these teams that we're talking about today. You need to be able to play your game. You can't have a 12 penalty game. You can't turn the ball over a bunch of times. You can't muff a punt. Like all those things. I mean, Iowa sort of plays a game where they're encouraging you to do all that stuff. And when you go make those mistakes, then they're able to capitalize on it. Are they going to drive 80 yards, 5-6 times? They're not doing that. but they'll have some 20 and 30-yard drives because of your mistakes. So I think it's one of those things where USC needs to be sort of free on offense and open and being able to do the things that they like to do, but also, and we've seen this with Jade Mahava, you can't have the kind of big mistakes. And, Notre Dame took advantage of them last year with a couple of, full length of field pick sixes. Iowa loves that stuff. Like I think there's some similarities here. Notre Dame's obviously more talented, but if you're going to if you're going to have those like flashy plays, you can't accompany them with the major mistakes, because this is one of those teams that pounces all over it, and they sort of almost rely on it to win these games, and I think that's what you so both of these teams we're talking about today, you have to just be buttoned up and just play, disciplined football. And that's going to be one of the tests for this coaching staff. Yeah, you add the talent and everything, but can you get everyone to play together? And that's, if you could do it for both of these games, I think you can begin them. But both of these teams are able to just take advantage of any mess up that you have.
I just think that they could overcome a pick six like they did against Nebraska last season, or a muff punt like they did against Wisconsin. I don't know if Iowa's going to be good enough to come into the Coliseum, even if USC makes a mistake or two to win this game. I just wonder how they're going to score points when USC will slow down that run game that Iowa's known for, and then they'll dare Gronowski, a first-year Big Ten quarterback, to make some plays with a wide receiving core that's not proven. So the way USC's schedule sets up, I like that they have some of the harder games on the road, because I think that should allow them, I've said this in past shows, to go undefeated in the Coliseum. I think that's a realistic expectation this season, where Iowa's a hard game, Michigan is a hard game, but like if USC is as good as I think they're going to be, you win those games at home, and then the road games, Notre Dame is tough, Oregon is tough, Illinois is tough, Nebraska might be tough. That's where the season will either be made or, it'll be a miss. So I think the road games are a little bit more where I'm fixated, and Iowa at home, that doesn't really scare me like some of these other opponents.
All right. Well, it's Notre Dame and Iowa.
All right.
Really? Yeah, make sure you check out the Summer School series.
Yes.
So USC one's out, so I was on that with Bud Elliott. But this is what we're doing is talking like Bud would talk to the publishers or the main writers for each of these programs, and then Connor was writing stories, kind of doing his early season previews. So that's why we're talking about these. If you don't know, I don't think I introduced that well in the beginning, but that's what we're doing.
All right. It's great talk on Notre Dame Fighting Irish and Iowa Hawkeyes. Hopefully we'll get the dub later this season. Let's move on to some USC recruiting.
Ooh.
I know this past week was the Elite 11 football camp. I know you guys were both in attendance. So what were your thoughts on the camp? Any standouts? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, Elite 11. So USC quarterback Jonas Williams, who we put some info in the war room on what we saw last week, but we can kind of give you some more recaps. I think we have 4 highlight videos of him up there. I thought he did really well talking to the people that run Elite 11, some of the camps, some of the counselors. They were just really impressed by him. One of the things is there's kind of a wide age range. These are all juniors, going to be seniors, but there were some 19-year-olds there. And Jonas Williams, the USC commit, out of Illinois, just turned 17. So he was the youngest or second youngest by a couple days of the guys at the event. But, when I was watching, seemed really accurate, was throwing the ball well on the run. They did that rail drill where you have to basically hit the receiver in the face mask down the sideline at the pylon, and he made it through like 4 rounds of that. So he was within the last 5 quarterbacks or so. When the final official Elite 11 rankings came out, there's like 20 quarterbacks go in, and then they name their Elite 11 plus an MVP. No particular order, but Jonas Williams was included in that. I think some of the 247 guys and some of the other recruiting services didn't really have him in their top 11 to start, where I would have from what I've saw. And then I think when you look at the Elite 11 standings, he was always in. He was like 7 or 9 or whatever. So he was in there and made the final standing. So for a young guy like that to come in and be considered one of the best quarterbacks there, I thought he had a really good showing. He ended up in the day that I saw in the 7-on-7, he had 7 touchdown passes in 15 minutes. One other quarterback had 6, but most people had 4 or 5, so he had the most. It was cool. I thought he showed out really well. He deserved to be in that group of 11, and it was a good one. I mean, will he be the next great USC quarterback? I don't know. We'll see. But I think he did what you wanted to see out there. He was certainly one of the better quarterbacks, and proved that he could play with those guys.
He impressed me as well, and the 24/7 sports director of scouting, Andrew Ivins, posted on our board today. He made the point about how Williams is young, like you did, Ryan, and talking to people at USC, he made it sound like they feel like Williams will play in an ideal world in his 3rd year at USC, and he will take over for Hassan Longstreet. Of course, who knows what that's going to happen. A lot will change from here, and whenever 3 years or 4 years from now is, that would be Williams' first year as a starter, according to Ivins' plan for him. But like, that kind of made sense to me, where you can see the traits that Lincoln Riley likes: his mobility, the accuracy. He can improve his arm strength, even though I didn't think that was not great. But like, you look at a guy like Diabell, who won the MVP, a guy like Kayshawn Henderson from who's going to Houston. Like, those are the taller, prototypical, like, 5-star quarterback guys, and Williams isn't quite there. But like, there's no reason after watching him to believe that he can't thrive in a Lincoln Riley offense. It might just be a little bit further off than some people think. But who knows? Maybe he comes in and has a great first year and could take it over as a second-year guy. We just have so many unknowns. I agree with what you said. It seems like he's certainly on the right path.
He's on the right path. And Indy, I want to get your thoughts on this too, where like, when we're covering recruiting, there's a big difference between a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old. And we've seen, guys get held back, men or women, whatever, and it changes things. And sometimes you look great and you're 19, but you're at your ceiling or, pretty close to it. And if you guys remember, Juju Smith-Schuster, like, came in, he was 17 his whole, like, freshman year at USC. I think he didn't turn 18 until like November. And then you were playing, guys in his class that were, 2 years older than him. And I don't know if you see that in basketball a lot, where people come in at, maybe a 17-year-old versus a 19-year-old, and the kind of differences that, development-wise.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I know women's basketball is a little bit different than football, but for sure, I mean, the biggest adjustment for high school kids coming into college is the pace. Obviously, basketball is a little bit different, but physicality, speed, all those factors. And so when you're younger and you're playing, you're 2 years older than people, of course you're going to look better because you're more physically, like, older and stuff like that, and faster and stronger and all those things. So it looks like you're dominating out there. And then when you come in and you play against guys or girls that are, the same age and same physicality wise, your talent level usually kind of decreases a little bit, because now the playing field is a little bit more even. And so, yeah, you definitely see that happen a little bit less in women's basketball, but it certainly happens.
It's just so important to get better. When I would cover high school sports, I saw so many basketball players who came in freshman year of high school, 5-star players, and then they did not get any better. And that's just as good as they were from 15 to 18, and that is not going to cut it. You have to make sure that you are improving, and that happens in football too. Like, I think that's the most important thing, and that's why we see some first-round picks who transfer up, and like, everyone runs their own race. Just because you're a 5-star guy, I think you have a 50% chance of getting drafted. I saw. So obviously the hit rate is better, but there's a reason that there are a lot of fans who are like, stars don't matter. Look at this guy, look at this guy, look at this gal. People who weren't highly ranked go on to have success, and it's because sometimes the 5-star player doesn't end up getting better. So it's certainly not fun, but interesting to watch that play out, because that has happened so many times. And
I think with the quarterback position specifically, we've seen this play out quite a bit, because it can be so specialized, and parents will have their kid working with this quarterback guru from the time, from a very young age, held them back for 7th grade, held them back after their freshman year of high school. And then you're like the 19-year-old who's had like really specific, it's almost like you're studying for like the SAT over and over and over again. And like, you're really good at taking the SAT. And you could go into like a quarterback camp and be really, I can do these footwork drills, I can do all these things. Does it make you like a great quarterback? Like, not necessarily. I think sometimes you're like, they're so specialized. And I think when you're coming in, so if you're looking at Jonas Williams coming in as a 17-year-old, yeah, you could have coaching and stuff like that, but you're not you didn't train to be great at the Elite 11. You're a really good quarterback. And I think some guys come through and they're trained to be really good at this stuff. And, a lot of times it makes you a great quarterback on the field too. But sometimes you're like, hey, I'm really good at taking the SAT, but I don't know how I'm going to do in college. I don't know if that makes sense.
And you look at historically the Elite 11, the hit rate is good, but it's not perfect, where C.J. Stroud wins MVP one year and goes on to have all the success in the world. And then there are other examples of guys who it didn't quite pan out the way you would expect it to. But it's like the 5-star thing. Like, there's a reason these quarterbacks are in that group.
Yeah.
And there's a reason the MVP wins the MVP. Like, just because you win the MVP of the Elite 11 and maybe don't make the NFL, that doesn't mean you suck or anything. Yeah. It just means you didn't get better. And I think that's something that we have to remember.
Yeah.
Want to talk about the camp that I went to Thursday a little bit too, Ryan? So I didn't go to the Elite 11 Thursday because USC had some commits on campus, and the staff let us watch the workouts, which was awesome. Chris paid pretty close attention to the defensive line. I watched the secondary, so I got a front row seat on Thursday to a workout that featured Albert Hill, that featured Peyton Dyer, 2 USC commits, Danny Lang from Mater Dei, who's a premier USC target in the 2027 class, was also there. There was a freshman from Santa Margarita who is going to blow up. His nickname is Prime. His first name is Karan. I'm forgetting his last name, but he was really impressive. But Albert Hill and Peyton Dyer. First of all, with Albert Hill, you watch the video that we put on YouTube of his workout. He is lightning fast. His back pedal speed, his sprinting speed, that immediately stands out. It's easy to see why he's so highly ranked. And we talk about all the recruiting wins USC's had. This is a kid who I think 5 years ago goes to Ohio State no matter what. He's from Ohio. USC's taking a premier defensive back out of Ohio, having him come to USC. He's been at USC pretty much every week in June. Like, he is as locked in as you can be. He really blew me away with what he was able to do, and I think he has a chance to come in and play a lot as a nickel. And then Peyton Dyer, really good size. That stands out the most with him. He probably will move to safety. I talked to Gerard a little bit about that. That's where we see his best position, but he could play corner as well. He's a bigger guy. He moved pretty well. It was hard to compare the movement of these guys when Albert Hill was just like he was ice skating out there. He was gliding, but I thought Dyer moved well as well. And just because of his size, he looks like a future safety. But it's easy to see why USC got these guys in their class, especially Hill. I have very high expectations for him. And it was really nice that the staff let us come out and watch these workouts, because that's not something that we get to see every day, especially the out-of-state kids, where if Albert Hill plays his senior year in Ohio, we're probably not going to cover one of his games, obviously. So it was really cool to see him in action.
Nice. Yeah. USC recruiting's rolling. They're doing a really good job. I think bringing in the personnel staff has helped so much. And you're seeing the results. I don't know if they'll be able to hold on to the number 1 class. You can listen to the composite 2-star recruits, and they talk about that extensively, but they're doing a good job. They, one big decommit, but just kind of keep adding pieces. And I wasn't sure once the House settlement was ratified or, accepted, and now all that front loading is kind of over, because now you have to start with this, with the new model, that all of your NIL deals have to pass the clearinghouse and all that. But USC's still recruiting. So they're still figuring out ways. I think all the schools, you have to sort of figure out, like, okay, well, how can we, build this roster and keep everyone happy and still everyone get paid and pass the clearinghouse. And I think a lot of schools have different sort of methodologies and plans of how to do that. USC seems to be working really well. Then we'll see if they're, a bunch of their deals get dinged down the road. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. I think USC's kind of taking the approach of, hey, we want to make sure all of these deals are legit and they would pass the clearinghouse. If you do that, if that's your focus, and I know a lot of schools I don't think are focused on that, and you could see the recruiting drop off, but USC hasn't dropped off. So I think they're still doing it. Their methodology seems to be working, and you got to give them props for what they're doing. And these recruiting weekends are a big deal in June, and they've all, just so many guys coming out. Like you said, guys from thousands of miles away showing up every weekend. Like, that's saying something about what you're doing. So we kind of gave USC a lot of criticism for the last couple of years of the way they were recruiting. Last year got a little bit better, but now it looks like it's a well-oiled machine. They're doing things the right way, and they're bringing in guys. And I think USC fans are this is what they're used to. If you're like Pete Carroll, you're like, oh yeah, top 5 class all the time. It looks like that's how they're rolling right now.
And the guys they're paying at the top of the class, the Mark Bowmans, Luke Wafels, Tom Tapuis, there's a reason those guys are making some good money from USC. They think they're going to come in and play right away. The USC staff does. So I talked to someone yesterday, got a little bit more insight into the recruiting strategy. And like every school, USC has money allotted to some of their top guys. But I think they're being smart about how they're going about it, where, yes, these guys are demanding a lot of money, but these are guys who USC thinks will come in and have an impact in their first year, where I think in the past USC would kind of get bogged down in just trying to make a splash. And now
yes.
I feel like they're evaluating much better than they were, and they're not only making a splash, but they're landing these guys and keeping these guys locked in, which there's a long way to go until December. I don't think any of the 3 guys I just named are going anywhere, which was different in the past. That's just the reality, where USC would get someone committed and then it would fall through, and maybe even that evaluation wasn't as foolproof as some of the evaluations on these guys. The staff is incredibly high on the 3 guys that I named, and we'll see how they do in that first year, but it's going to be fun. I know that much.
Yeah, I mean, NIL's been around for a little while now, but I don't think it took until last year before USC started really writing checks in the recruiting game. But they weren't, I don't think the strategy behind it was more just like throwing money around. This year, I think it's more strategic, where they're going to throw money around where they need to. And like Connor was mentioning, a guy that you feel like can be a cornerstone of the class and make a big impact right away. Not just trying to make a splash with somebody like Connor, the way Connor phrased it. So I think they're still writing checks this year, and that's just the way you have to recruit now. But they're doing it in a much more efficient way, and they're backing it up with the traditional recruiting that the fans always love to hear, where, you're making the phone calls, you're getting the visits, you're smoozing with the family, you know what their dog's name is, all that kind of stuff. They're doing a much better job on that aspect too. And they also have like a checkbook that they can write and bring those guys in. So I think they're just doing a much better job across the board. Money's a big part of it. I know some fans don't want to hear that, but it just is. All schools are doing it. USC's able to play the bigger money game now, which wasn't the case before, but they're also recruiting hard and smart and efficient. And I think you're seeing the results because of all that kind of coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a good time if you follow recruiting to be a USC fan, because things are certainly going a little better. I know we're going to take a break in a second, but the last thing, before we do take a break, with all the money talk, it was nice yesterday to go to USC, and the football team held a philanthropic event for an after-school group called LA's Best, which is made up of a bunch of LAUSD students from, I think, kindergarten, or I think elementary school. So elementary school students, there's a picture there. And this wasn't like a House of Victory thing where the guys do a good deed and then it's a actionable item and they get paid. This was just out of the goodness of their hearts. Clark Stroud, the former director of ops, is now in charge of these philanthropic events. And Anthony Beavers, who you can see there holding the microphone or megaphone, he put it on because he was an LA Best student back when he was in elementary school. So pretty much the whole team came out, which was great to see. And it was 2 hours of fun with elementary school kids from South Central LA, and the team was having a blast. The kids were having a blast. It just looked like a really fun time out there. And you can see some of the early enrollee freshmen are out there as well. Like Jaden Ramos is in that picture, Gus Cordova, class of 2025 edge rushers. So it was the full team. I saw Timmy Robinson out there, the Penn State transfer, Dee Reddick, the true freshman safety. The full team is here. They are ready for camp, and the only guys who weren't there were guys who had school obligations. But really, it was like, I think, like 70 guys for the most part, and everyone was having a blast, so that was great.
Nice. Yeah, those are cool events to see over at USC. And you said Anthony Beaver's working on his second master's?
He's getting his second master's degree.
That's crazy. Andy, what did you get there? Did you get... Dude, undergrad, you 2 masters. What do you got?
I got an undergrad and a master's.
Wow.
Undergrad in journalism and master's in law.
Very nice. Okay.
5 years.
What recruiting class were you in, India? Anthony Beavers was 2021.
I was class of 2019.
Okay.
So it'd been a minute. Took my 5th year, COVID year.
Oh yeah. He's only 21. Class of 21.
He's been there though since I've been there though for sure.
Unless our website's wrong, 2021.
I thought he was because he's like red shirt. I don't know. I thought he was there like 6 years or something, but
he's a Trojan at heart, just like me. We can't go. We can't seem to leave.
she got her USC sweats on.
Always got to represent.
This is India's like transition to like real life. Like she just finished working the USC women's basketball camps, and now she's like, they let her go out in the real world. Yeah. So this is her first. What to do
with myself.
This is her first, soiree into real world life. So We'll see. But we appreciate you coming in there. So some people are still saying there's some muffled audio. So my apologies for the audio stuff. This is not an India problem. This is the first time we've done like the 3-person setup for a while with these mics. So I'll take a look at those when we're done with that. So my apologies if you're not hearing stuff exactly right. But you know what time it is, India?
I heard it's break time.
It's break time.
So we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and answer some questions that you all have. And see you guys soon.
All righty, we're back here on the Peristyle Podcast. I'm Ryan Abraham. Make sure you check out uscfootball.com. We have a 50% off for annual membership sale going on right now. So if you want to get the best USC football and athletics coverage wall to wall for the next 365 days, you can sign up half price. What is it like? It's like $50 or something. It's pretty cheap. So price of lunch. You can have a whole year's worth of USCfootball.com access. Shows like this, a lot of inside information. The War Room every week, people love. We've been doing the War Room for, I don't know, it's like 25 years now. It's been crazy. Every Friday morning, we post inside tidbits of what's going on in the USC Athletic Department. All summer long, doesn't matter. We're kind of constantly posting stuff in there. Last week was really good. It was like really long for a middle of June War Room, but good stuff. So make sure you go check out USCfootball.com. And of course, like and subscribe our feed on YouTube at Inside Troy, where we do all these shows. Put a lot of videos up recently. Connor did the basketball video. You can mention that briefly if you want to. What was going on there? But a lot of football videos, a lot of highlights, recruiting videos. So tons of stuff up there at our YouTube channel. So like and subscribe over there and check it out.
Yeah, I covered the USC men's basketball practice yesterday, and 5-star freshman guard Elijah Arenas spoke for the first time after practice. He still isn't practicing quite yet. He needs to finish up some enrollment stuff, but he signed, so we were able to speak with him. And he, of course, had that horrific car accident back in April, and he talked at length for about 20 minutes about that whole ordeal. And Eric Musselman was right beside him. It was a very scary situation. He said that Tesla he was driving locked up on him, so just an awful event, but it was great after we got past that and he finished explaining what had happened, just to hear how he's in good basketball shape. He's made a full recovery, which is, of course, the most important thing, and USC is very excited to have him on board. So that was the big story from yesterday. And just watching practice, Chad Baker-Mazzara continues to really impress me, the Auburn transfer, and I liked what I saw yesterday from Jordan Marsh, the 5'10" guard from UNC Asheville. So much is new with that team. I don't feel comfortable making a bold prediction about them, but I do think they have a chance to be good, and I guess in the offseason, that's really all you can ask for.
Did you guys interact much with the men's basketball team, India? Or?
We did a little bit. I would say more so a couple of years back, like with my class. In the first couple of years I was at USC, we were a little bit closer with them. And then since then, with like Andy leaving and a lot of new guys coming in, we didn't interact too much, except, when we were in the halls or in the training room and things like that. But yeah, a great group of guys, the ones that I did meet, really kind. We say hi to you in the hallways, and they really rooted for our team and came to our games, and we went to theirs. So Always a great group of guys.
Nice. Well, we got some questions. I'll read an email, and I know India's got some of these questions teed up from the chat. If you guys were watching on YouTube or Facebook and put a question in there, she starred them. But I'll start with David from Behind the Orange Curtain. In light of the Trojans' away game record last year, will we do anything different this year? Is it my understanding that the team travels on Fridays? If so, are there any plans to change it up in the hopes of improving our away record? I forgot that was something we brought up last year, and they did travel like the day before the games, even though it was all the time zones there. I haven't heard that that's going to change or not or anything.
Lincoln Riley talked, I forget when, but he did say they might change it, which will be music to fans' ears because. Man, that was a hot button issue last year. What do you mean they're traveling on Friday? They're not going to be ready to go, and that pissed off everyone. But Riley stuck with his guns, and it didn't end up working out. It seems like he might be open to changing that, so we'll see. I wonder if Chad Bowden has any thoughts with Notre Dame playing
that's a good question.
At different time zones, if he has any idea that can maybe help.
Yeah, we're going to check with him next time we talk. Yeah, but, if USC wins the game at Michigan, then no one's complaining that, you travel on a Friday, but you lose that game. You lose the Maryland game late. You lose the Minnesota game. You keep losing games like that. And if there was something they were questioning about your travel schedule, if you won all the games, then like, see, we could travel on Friday. It's fine. But because you lost them, traveling on Friday was the worst thing you could have ever done. So, it's results driven, but unfortunately for USC and Lincoln Riley, the results sucked. So you're going to be questioned on what your decisions were. And it's a lot. I mean, even when we're flying in there, I don't know if you want to chime in with some of the road trips India you guys took, but we'd fly Friday and then do like an event that night for USC fans Friday night wherever we're going. And we're not working out or anything, but it's it's kind of tiring by the time you get through there and the time zone's all off. But I don't know what. Your thoughts on traveling and playing the next day when you had to do that?
The travel was brutal this past year. Obviously, I wasn't a player this past year. I was on staff, but man, the travel was brutal. I mean, I just off the top of my mind, when we went to UConn to play UConn on December, like close to Christmas, our game was late. It was on, I can't remember, ABC or a big network, and the game was at like 8 p.m. Game was done at like 10 or so. Issues with the plane, had to wait for a plane to come, finally got leaving at like 12 and didn't come back. Then we had to stop for fuel and we didn't get back here until like 7 a.m. Some of the players missed their flights home for Christmas and had to take like the next one out. So travel was exhausting this past year, and it wasn't too bad during Pac-12. It was nice because the Pac-12, we always played Friday and Sunday, so we usually left like Thursday in the morning. We were fine, obviously the states weren't too far, and then we would come back Sunday after the game. But this past year was tough with the Big Ten and flying across the country, and sometimes we'd leave 2 days early, sometimes we left the day before. We would bus sometimes to another state, like we bused from Indiana to Purdue, and the travel was definitely a lot. Thank God I didn't have to do any schoolwork this past year. I don't know how the team did it.
The difference, though, between the women's basketball team and the football team is that the women's basketball team lost once to Iowa, and the football team lost more games than they would have liked. So you'd think that the basketball team with all those games would have lost more, but that was not the case.
Yeah.
All right, we got some questions for you guys. Let's see. First one up, we've got from Sagar Patel. His question is, will Longstreet have to start any games this year?
Ooh.
Ideally, I don't think so, but with an injury, it's always possible.
Yeah, I think there's two possibilities. One's injury, obviously, like that could be the case. I think he's going to end up being your backup quarterback. But if he's put in the game because of performance, that's not going to be a good sign. USC has a really easy early slate of games, and if things start to kind of go sour and you're losing some of those road games like we were talking about, and a lot of it's the quarterback play, turning the ball over or whatever, if he's starting games because of that, that's not a good sign for the season. I mean, it might be good for long term, like if he's going to be ready and everything, but yeah, that would be bad if he's forced into starting. Injury wise, that wouldn't be good either. But if it's because of performance, it's like, and we haven't seen Lincoln Riley do a lot of that. I mean, he did it last year with Miller Moss, but that was late in the season. And a lot of that stuff I wouldn't put on him. I think it was just the season was going awry and they needed something to change. But if he's going to replace Jade Mayava at this point, after going through the whole offseason, not bringing in a transfer quarterback, things are probably not going well.
I agree.
Yeah.
Next question from Fight On Chris 10. How good is this year's field goal kicker? We missed too many field goals and had too many blocks last year. Hope this is cleaned up. Thoughts on this, guys?
Hopefully better, but I don't know. Caden Chittenden is the UNLV transfer's name. He made 26 out of 33 field goals last year. His long was 52 yards. He missed 2 out of 12 between 20 and 29 yards, and he missed 3 over 50 yards. So he wasn't All-American, I think, but I don't know. He wasn't exactly lights out, so I'm kind of holding my breath with him. I'm a little nervous about him.
All right. Literally, we get kicker questions in June. Like, you're worried about the kickers right now?
We're getting kicker and travel questions. You got to love it.
Yeah.
Next question from Dylan in Albuquerque. We've got, how is this season over or under too low at 7.5?
Oh, nice. You might have to click it again to make it pop up there. Sorry. Yeah.
There
I know sometimes it does that.
I'm new, guys. I'm new.
No. You're great. That's a software thing. That happens to me too. I'll play like, what? And then you have to like re-click the question. But she's doing a great job. Like, it is like putting B-roll up. Like, I literally showed her how to do this a half an hour before we started the show. So she's, kicking ass. So I love it. I do think 7.5 is low. Now,
but understandable based on the last couple of years.
Right. Because if things go the way you think they're going to go, I think, at least 8-4 and 9-3 is like sort of like the sweet spot somewhere. I would put it at like 8.5. I think it would be more I would go over for 7.5. 8.5, I think that's a really good spot to be. But we've covered the team. We know sort of what's going on there, and you're banking on a lot of things getting better. The defense did improve a lot last year. You think it can improve even more with sort of better personnel? And it's really the drop-off on the offensive side where you did have to replace the quarterback and things weren't going the way you thought. You think that's going to get better as well. So we'll see. New strength coach. There's a lot going on. And if you have faith that that's going to make a difference, then I think 7.5 is too low. But the way the odds makers are working, I mean, people gave Connor crap last year for saying 7-5, and USC ended up going 6-6. I would have never, bet. I don't know what you would need to juice it for me to have said USC won less than 6.5, go under of 6.5 games last year, but that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think they will be better, but I understand the 7.5 number, and I think a big part of that is like, how bad did USC look at the end of Big Ten games last season? They did not do well in conference, and so second year in the conference, you'd think that they could get better, but like, I understand why it would be low when they just look so bad in those conference games. Like, that's what's so crazy about last year, 6-6, but they beat LSU the first game, so that makes it even crazier.
Yeah, 2-0 against the SEC.
Yeah,
and then
unbelievable. But I
lose to Maryland.
I think that is a little low too, but like, I think 8.5 would be high. So maybe I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, because then you'd have to get him at 9 based on how the last couple of years went, which I think 9 is realistic. But if you're in Las Vegas and you set those odds, like, I understand why it would be 7.5. I look at the schedule. I think there are 5 guaranteed wins: Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, Michigan State, and Northwestern. And then, not that they're all toss-ups, but to varying degrees, the rest of the games are toss-ups. At Illinois, home against Michigan, at Notre Dame, at Nebraska, home against Iowa, which earlier I talked about how I didn't think Iowa was that good, but I guess we can call it a toss-up, at Oregon, and then home against UCLA. So that's 7 games. To get over 7.5, you'd have to win 3 out of those 7. That seems realistic to me.
Yeah. I'm going to read, we had a YouTube comment from before from Scourge77. He said, some potential topics to muse through for the next show. Joel Klatt did a pressure rating, and one coach mentioned was Lincoln Riley. Agree or disagree with his take? Will it work out or not? A lot of people are seemingly so dead set on Riley returning next season, no matter the record this year, due to his contract, but I'm not really in the same boat as them. I'd like to hear your guys' take. Thanks. So this was a YouTube comment.
I think it's a very big pressure season for him. Another disappointing year, and the infrastructure is in place with an established AD, a general manager who has done a good job, a new strength coach. Like, I think there are coaches where it's not ideal to come in and have people all around you, but it would be a good situation for some up-and-coming coach to come in, and maybe not even an up-and-coming coach, but to come in and be surrounded by what Lincoln Riley is surrounded by right now, if Jen Cohen can keep that together. So I do think a bad season, and even if it's expensive, USC can fundraise right now, and you could sell based on how everything is put together, like, hey, we have everything but the coach if it goes poorly. So I could see him being in a real pressure situation if this year doesn't go according to plan. I agree with Joel Klatt.
Yeah, I think he's under pressure for sure. And like you mentioned, the infrastructure, there was a lot of problems around the USC athletic department and the football team. And over the last several years, you've fixed them. You know, if there's some like mansion house and you're trying to sell, you're a real estate agent trying to sell it, and you're like, we could list this, whatever, and you're not getting bites. People aren't coming to your open houses. You're like, well, the landscaping's bad. Let's go fix the landscaping. All right, so the landscaping's better, and like, you know, we just haven't staged it right. We're going to stage it all. And like, oh, you know, I think we need to upgrade the solar panels and make a better roof and stuff. That's going to, you know, make the house more efficient. And we got to remodel the kitchen. It's just outdated, and fresh paint throughout the whole thing. And if you still can't sell the house, then you have to look at the real estate agent, you know, right? You know, you've fixed everything else in this house, and you still can't sell it. Then the question is, what are you doing wrong? And I think that's what's been happening, where you needed to fix this, you need to fix that, the personnel, the whatever it is, the coaching, the strength staff, everything has been upgraded around Lincoln Riley. And if you're not going to win games, then there's only one place to look at this point. And the contract is the big deal. I do get the feeling, though, that if it's a pretty abysmal year, that the athletic department's going to feel enough pressure that, like, look, we can't do anything. We have no more magic bullets. We can't replace your strength coach again. We can't give you the hottest defensive coordinator in the country. We can't do all these things. We can't give you the personnel staff that put Notre Dame in the national championship. We did all that stuff, and you're still not winning. So there's nothing else the athletic department can do besides make a move, the head coach. Then it would take, which fundraising is such a big deal, a lot of fundraising, or some, you know, creative financial way to get out of, you don't want to have to pay a Jimbo Fisher kind of buyout, you know, but something reasonable. But I think if Lincoln Riley loses too, he's probably not going to want to stick around either. He's got to know, like, hey man, they made everything great around me. Now what? Like why can't I win here, or what's going on? So I think they'd have to figure something out if it's a really bad year. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think you would have to sort of figure something out. There's nothing else. There's nothing else you can fix besides changing the head coach.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I see in the chat someone asked if he didn't have the big buyout, would he already be gone? I don't know for sure, but it's definitely a hell of a lot more likely than not, because if he didn't have that buyout and it was easy to get rid of him, Jen Cohen didn't hire him. Like, I understand why someone would think that he would be gone. I do think, like, if I was in this spot and there wasn't a big buyout, like, give him this year, because I think a lot of stuff is moving in the right direction, and it would probably be premature, because I do think they have some potential this year. But yeah, this is certainly a make or break year, and in my opinion, regardless of the buyout or not. Yeah. Any other in the question in the chat?
That's all of the questions we got.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. We really appreciate India coming in and doing killing it on our very first show.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll give the applause. My apologies if you're watching live on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, I'll be able to edit the audio and stuff. But if you're watching us live, or probably on the replay of YouTube or Facebook, if it sounds a little weird, my apologies. I'll figure out what was going on there. It was not our new intern producing the show. This is all set up.
Might have been. Who knows? But
no, I don't think she was doing anything. Yeah. But yeah, it was great stuff. We're not gonna do a House of Victory player interview this week, but we'll get those going again next week. I do want to give a shout out. Haley over there at House of Victory brought at the Top Golf event. It was a really fun one for the Olive Crest charity that I've been a part of for a few years now. And they did a great job. Jean-Ray Reed and Wayman Jordan came out And some of the USC fans all came out there for that. We're going to do another one, I think, in like February. So I'm going to be part of the planning committee for that. So we'll get more people involved, and it should be a lot of fun. But they've been great to work with, and they brought some players to that event, and of course they brought a ton of players in here for us to interview. So that was a lot of fun, and looking forward to doing more of those, and looking forward to doing more with India coming into the studio and working with us. So we appreciate.
I'll be back, guys. I'll be back.
Love it. She's going to the real world now.
Yeah,
she's all grown up.
I'm here to stay.
And we'll get some insights on what's going on with the USC women's basketball team and stuff too. She can give us some. I think she has some sources over there, so we'll get to feel what's going on. But we're going to wrap things up for Connor and India. I am Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.